More than 100 people have now been arrested after the riot in Vancouver Wednesday night, and police say they are just getting started. Today, Premier Christy Clark announced that a team of professional Crown prosecutors will be working with police on cases stemming out of the melee Wednesday night. And ICBC has offered its facial recognition technology to help identify suspects. For many, that won't be necessary. They are already turning themselves in. Also today, the general manager and coach of the Canucks spoke publicly for the first time since that Game 7 loss and the riot after that. ANews reporter Eric Thompson has the story.
The chaos that broke out after the Vancouver Canucks lost their fight for the Stanley Cup stunned and sickened the team's management.
It's not reflective of us, it's not reflective of the city, or it's not reflective of our fans.
Mike Gillis watched the violence unfold with his family and saw the city he loves to call home tarnished by what he calls a small group who are not Canucks fans, but rather troublemakers.
I hope they get every one of them. I hope they put them behind bars, and I hope there is no leniency in the punishment that's doled out.
Vancouver Police Chief Jim Chu says his department is ready to lay the first charges against a young man who turned himself in.
This male is going to be charged with arson to property, mischief, unlawful assembly, and participation in a riot.
In total, 7 people have turned themselves in, but Chu says this is just the beginning.
We are going to vigorously pursue those lawbreakers.
We are going to find you.
Today, the Premier announced that a team of professional Crown prosecutors will work with police and lead all aspects of the prosecution related to the June 15th riot.
We are going to do our best to make sure that you don't find your way onto the streets of Vancouver again to do this to our city.
ICBC has offered Vancouver police use of its facial recognition technology to help identify suspects. And the city's police chief has a message for the people who tried to intervene. Good Samaritans like these men who tried to protect a vehicle from the mob, only to be ripped away from the vehicle and beaten for their efforts.
I'm sorry that we couldn't back you up and get to you earlier. What you've done is truly heroic.
Police are also being recognized. Post-it notes of thanks stuck on the windshield of a parked police cruiser. By morning, the car was covered, a stark contrast to the sad and terrifying scene that followed Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. But even as the city comes together, there are questions about the sheer size of the crowd and whether something should have been done sooner.
It becomes a judgment call as to does it get worse if you try and disperse the crowd, take away the screens.
The boarded-up broken windows outside the Hudson's Bay are now nearly covered with messages of apology and hope that will be preserved.
This is now part of our history. There's a dark side to it, and there's a bright side of emotion that we need to call forth and that we need to make sure is kept and treasured for the future.
The Premier says the mayhem that unfolded Wednesday night will not stop the city from holding large-scale events in the future.
Eric Thompson joins us now in Studio A. Eric, many people asking, why were cars allowed to park outside the post office? Experts had recommended against that. One of the many ignored recommendations after the '94 riots.
Hudson, the city's police chief says going into the riot, police did the best they could using the best expertise and judgment. And certainly no one wants to see a repeat of what happened on Wednesday, and a review of how the riot was handled will be done, but the first order of business is seeing that those who took part in the riot are prosecuted.
And that will happen. Eric, thank you.
You're welcome.